boat race is a weird thing to row. It's so intense and there's so much build up. There's so much pressure and you kind of think about it the whole time. You've obviously seen 100 boat races before. So you kind of have this idea of what it's like to be in it. And then you get in it and then it's just like a kind of strange, it's not like an anticlimax. It's just a really hard slog. And you never feel, it's not like an emotional thing at all. You're just kind of locked in and then eventually something happens and you find yourself in a winning position or not.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Last Show Counts. Today's guest is the Cambridge University Boat Cup president, Seb Benzecry. Please welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. This is a really exciting one because we get to talk about a whole bunch of different things. Schoolboy rowing, St. Paul's, GB Vest, Princeton, American uni rowing, which we haven't got into too much, Cambridge, and I guess a bit of Henley as well, given the time of year. So a lot to get through. It's a pretty good one.
It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Let's get into it like we always do. Super interesting to find out how you found rowing in the first place.
Well, I was at St. Paul's, which is down in London on the tugway course. And I was playing rugby. I was, I guess, 13, 14. Ended up getting an injury playing rugby. And my parents were basically like, you're not allowed to play rugby anymore. Like, find something else to do. And I hadn't really been sporty up until that year. But I think playing rugby really sort of was, I don't know, it got me sort of thinking more about doing sports more seriously. And then obviously the boathouse at St. Paul's is right there. And they were offering J14 rowing in that second term. So went down to the boathouse, gave it a try, and really, never looked back. Was out in the octopools doing, I don't know what races were on at that time of year. It was like Hammersmith Head, I think was my first race.
Cool.
And yeah, it's just immediately like caught the bug, as I guess people do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What do you think it was about rowing that kind of?
I don't know. I mean,
fire.
I think it helped that I was pretty big for I feel like I hit puberty quite early. Like I kind of, when I was 13, I looked quite similar to how I do now. So I had a bit of a head start in terms of just like being tall and strong. So I felt like I was good at it, which was nice. Like it felt like the sport that I'd found where I was like, oh, I'm actually quite good at this. And yeah, I think we had a really great group. So my year at St. Paul's, we had Freddie Davidson, David Ambler, who are now, going to the Olympics in the fall, they really were so passionate about it, from the start. And I think they really kind of gathered, everyone else up in that kind of passion. And a lot of other good guys as well. And then in the year above me, we had Arthur Doyle, who ended up being the president at Harvard, the captain at Harvard, and rowed for Cambridge in the COVID year that got cancelled. But he was a fantastic rower. And he was sort of super inspiring to row in the year below and then end up rowing with when we were seniors. So yeah, I think it's just that it was the guys really. It was the kind of the culture that was building.
Was it Bobby Thatcher back then?
Yeah, so Bobby was the senior coach. So when we were J17s, J18s.
Yeah.
But my first coach was Anthony Smith, who's now the UL head coach.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Yeah, Smithy. He was really great. I think he was actually a big part of why we all sort of fell in love with it so quickly. Just an amazing guy, really. And really kind of taught us to enjoy the thing, which was really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
So when you started, where there currently is the Erg Gym at St. Paul's, used to be a tank. Was there a tank when you first started there, or was it already a gym?
No, it was a tank, yeah. Yeah, one of the weirdest sort of setups, really. It was like, the room was absolutely terrible. Like, it was full of cobwebs. It was just, there were kind of weights around the sort of periphery of the room, like weight racks. And then, there was a tank, and then they had these two platforms built over the oars of the tank that the ergs were on.
Wow.
So yeah, it was very strange. I've never seen anything like it since, and it was not conducive to good training, really.
No.
But it was fun. It was kind of a cool, like, it was a bit of like a dungeon,
like the right gym.
Yeah. And we always sort of compared it to, I mean, Eton was the big one, right? Yeah. You know, they're kind of massive, set up in Dorney, and then we were there in our kind of dungeon.
Yes.
You know.
So technically, if you had like a bad ergo, you could have fallen off and straight into the water on there.
That would have been possible, yes. And like we had like squirrels and rats like crawl into the tank and die, and then you find their like bloated corpses.
Cool.
After session, yeah, it was nice. It was good.
That's London for you.
Yeah, exactly.
At school, we trained in a basement below the sixth form college, and my coach was always happy when there was like a big erg session where you could see like the sweat like dripping on the walls, like, and there was like all the green mold in the corner. But like, you're right, like you just like make it a thing. Like, look what we've got. Like we can still do it.
No, absolutely. It becomes part of the culture. It's like it kind of binds everyone together.
Definitely. Almost like the worse the conditions are, the more like the training is meaningful, and the more of a reason you have to like beat those other big rivals who've got the perfect setup, because they've got everything perfect. We don't. Yeah, exactly. We're still beating you. So
exactly. Yeah.
What was it like rowing under Bobby? He's obviously some serious success.
Yeah,
I say of late, but in the recent years, becoming a bit of a myth, a legend.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I guess back when I was at St Paul's, I mean, he was a fantastic coach. He was a fantastic coach. That run of success really only started with us when we were J15s. I think he J17s in 2015. He had been very successful with Latimer.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of right at the outset of his coaching career. And then, moved to St Paul's and was definitely like building something. And I think when we moved up into the senior squad, I guess him being able to have athletes like Freddie and Dave and kind of build something really special, and it kind of all the stars aligned, I guess, for that first season that we were in the senior squad. And I mean, he's just a brilliant coach. He is so, I guess his strength is having such a good technical eye, right? But being able to communicate so sort of clearly and effectively. And I guess that's kind of what it always comes down to with good coaches, right? It's kind of cutting through the layers of complication that tend to build up when you think, about the rowing stroke the whole time.
Yeah.
And sort of get to those core things that like, what is it that makes the boat go fast? Like, what do these guys need to do to make it go fast? And Bobby just gets it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's exactly what he said as well, though. Like, you can't wait to have the athletes to put the program in place. You've got to build the culture in the program, and then at some point you get the athletes in, and that, like, everyone does it. I've done it myself, like, guilty of like, oh geez, like they came from nowhere. It's like, no, they've been working really hard, putting stuff in place for years, and then you just see the win. You don't see like the hard work before.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's just so many foundations that I think were built at St Paul's from the moment he started in 2011. I think he came.
Was it? Yeah, he's been there a while now. Then.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. And I think it all sort of came together, and then has repeatedly come together pretty much every year since then, which has been great to see.
Yeah, every year we go and fix the eggs there, and there's another giant banner of triples and doubles and GB.
Yeah, no,
and stuff.
It's pretty amazing. Amazing. And when I was there, there wasn't any of that stuff really. I think we won School's Head in 2014. The guys, the first day when I was at J16, won School's Head, and that was a pretty big thing. And then it sort of started to pick up steam.
It's interesting to hear you talk about Bobby, because no one's spoken about him on the podcast before that's been like coached by him, etc. So like, it just shows there's often like a talk about like, if coaches don't produce results straight away, to like bin them like in football, etc. Except like it takes years until you start winning, and now it's arguably one of the most successful junior coaches in the country. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think he must be the most successful. I can't think of anyone who rivals like. Particularly the last, I guess since 2015, so almost 10 years. Wow, that's crazy.
Like Henschel with Eton, had a good run, but it's pretty unbeatable now.
Eton got like challenged by Westminster quite a lot, and back in those days, and you don't really hear a lot more about them during like the weekend of Henley anymore.
I think that's the thing that makes it special. Like as a school coach, you're always limited by the kids you've got, and like there's always limiting factors, and a lot of schools have quite difficult, or sort of more difficult process of entering. It's not just like a free for all. There's not really any like poaching, maybe, or in terms of like recruitment at a junior level.
Yeah, no, not
So yeah, when you see clubs go up and down, like, oh great, they had a great influx, they had a big year, whatever.
Yeah.
But like the consistency of his results, like you can't just be like, oh, that was a good couple of years.
No, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's the schools as well that are either well set up or not well set up to produce success at that level. Because like I think St. Paul's is really well set up just because of the fact that the boathouse is right on site, the fact that we're able to get on the water every day, and like there's just room to do it properly. Yeah. So like I coach at the Lees School in Cambridge, and at max they're rowing 3 times a week, and the school just doesn't like give them the scope to do more. Even if they want to, they have to basically go and join a town club.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, I feel like, I don't know, you have to be at the right place. And I think for Bobby, at least, St. Paul's was very much at the right place for him to be able to sort of really,
it's a good point,
you know, get his vision across and do what he felt like he could do and wanted to do.
Gave the chef all the ingredients.
Yeah, no, exactly.
To say I'm loose. Yeah,
exactly.
So when you were rowing at St. Paul's, coming towards the end of obviously the school, did you know you wanted to continue rowing, or like did Bobby instill like the vision for like what your career could become later?
Yeah, I mean, he did talk a lot about what he felt we could do. I think he was very keen for everyone to keep rowing. He wanted, he knew how sort of impactful and transformative rowing can be and the sort of paths it can take you down. And yeah, I mean, he was always pretty ambitious for us, I think. And so, back then the US university thing was picking up a lot of steam, I think. Like, not that many people were going to US university, but definitely some of the top guys. But really, from my year onwards, I felt like everybody started looking to the US, and certainly Bobby was like, if you guys want to row seriously, as I think you should look, to go to the US system. And yeah, for me, like, I wanted to be in the US anyway. I love the US. So it was quite a sort of tantalizing thought to go and, row for a US university. And Arthur, in the year above us, had gone to Harvard. So, we knew it was possible. Yeah. But yeah, no, Bobby was definitely, he was always like, oh, you could do senior national team. I see it for you. The Olympics, like, not me, but Freddie and Dave for sure.
I'll just wait.
Yeah. I don't know about that. But yeah, and even now, I mean, he's in contact with me and other guys at different universities being like, oh, I've got these brilliant kids. You should talk to them. You should get them to Cambridge. You should get them to wherever. Like, I see them at LA in 2028. It's like, I mean, it's just nice that he's so invested in the success, the continued success of the athletes after they leave the program.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
So how was the culture shock then, getting over to America? What's the squad size like at St. Paul's? Not huge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the seniors, we probably had 3/8. Yeah. Obviously, it's like quite a lot of people, given there's all different age groups, and we were all kind of training together. But it was definitely, I mean, to step onto a team of 50 guys and you're all kind of rowing in the same boats, mixing around, I think, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was quite overwhelming, I think, at first. And just the amount of talent is crazy. The amount of power and, experience. Everyone's young, right? There are no postgrads, but you still have multiple U23 medalists, junior medalists, Olympians, I guess, all with, from 18 to 21, 22. And yeah, I mean, it was just a very cool thing to step into, but it kind of like took me back a bit. I was like, wow, I'm not the big dog here, which can be hard, I think. And it was probably, I struggled a bit with it, just feeling like I was just nowhere near, the standard of the guys at the top. It's kind of it's quite humbling, I guess.
Definitely, especially when you take part in like such a big program, you're almost like forced to check your ego a bit, and then have to like grind more. So I guess it will have made you a better athlete because of that. But how come you chose Princeton in the first place? Was that like something that you've wanted to do always?
Yeah, so I think it was basically based on the official visits that I took. So when you're being recruited to US universities, you are entitled to 48 hours on campus if the coaches invite you, where you can like hang out with the guys and go to classes and sort of see what the university life is like. And I think at that point when I was taking the official visits, I had thought that maybe Harvard would be my top choice. And then I just did my official at Princeton at the end of a few visits. And I just really it just felt so right to me. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And it's not a big university, but it's really kind of, I don't know, close-knit campus, great community. I don't know. I loved it. And I love the team. The guys that I met were brilliant. The setup just looks amazing. And yeah, it really kind of resonated with me. And I just thought this felt right. So
what's the race schedule look like on a US side, like compared to, because ours is pretty like, you know, Falls Head, Waterford, Met, Marlow, Henley, the classics. Yeah, that's it really, like at the high level. But I think you guys put sort of weekend in, weekend out.
Yeah, well, we do when the race season rolls around. So the fall is basically Head of the Charles and the Princeton Chase.
What's that?
It's like it's a Princeton head race basically. Quite a few teams come to it. None of the massive hitters. Cal usually sends like a freshman 8, but then it's like Wisco, Syracuse, sometimes Dartmouth. And some other sort of East Coast teams. And it's basically just like the whole Princeton lake. And yeah, so those are the two big ones for us in the fall. And then you do a lot of internal, Princeton has a lot of sort of quirky internal race. We have our own Falls Head.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, a kind of inter-squad Falls Head where you do you do 2 laps of the lake, I think, with a turnaround of the boy, which is always quite fun.
Is it much falls, like trial sort of thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I think they're like sets of match 4s.
Right. Okay.
So it's not like every fully matched across the entire squad, but there's like a group of top 4s and then a group of middle 4s. Yeah. But that was always quite fun. But then there's quite a long period of time where you're not racing at all. You're just erging.
Okay. Yeah, because everyone has to erg because some people's water freezes.
Yeah, and our water definitely froze.
Right.
So that was always a bummer. But
how long is that for, roughly?
So I think it's Thanksgiving is when you have to stop rowing. Okay. So it's November, something.
It's not America. It's end of November.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're fully just erging from then until we go on training camp in January to Florida. So yeah, it's quite a long time. It always kind of goes quicker than you would expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so you do training camp in January. We used to go to Tampa, which is cool. Sort of
very sunny.
Yes, very sunny. Great place to row, really. And then you finally get into the racing season, and then it's like every weekend you're racing someone different, and you're kind of traveling up and down the East Coast, and it's just a brilliant sort of.
Who's trailing all those boats all over the US?
It's the boatman. Yes, Boatman Steve. I don't know if he's still there.
Putting the miles in.
Yeah, really putting the miles in. And when we used to do the IRAs in California, you drive across the country over not that long a period of time. He didn't give himself long to do it. It's like a few days doing, I don't know, 3,000 miles.
Jeez.
And obviously you guys do a lot of one-on-one racing as well.
Yeah.
Which we don't really do at all. Here, I mean, only if, like most squads don't even have 2 8s that match that can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot of Henley prep, right?
It is a lot of Henley prep, yeah. Although it's funny, I always felt that the one-on-one racing in the States, it doesn't have that Henley or boat race vibe to it. I don't really know why. It always felt a bit like you were just doing a 6-lane race, but there were only 2 boats for some reason. You're still very insular in those races, because I feel like the rivalry maybe isn't quite as strong. Like I never looked at, Brown the way that I would at Oxford, being like, everything in my life is about beating these guys, So you kind of, those dual races, you're really just trying to come together as crews. And there's a lot of movement around between the crews because there are so many guys. So selection is always a massive nightmare for the coaches. So you might be in the 2v one weekend, and then you're in the 3V the next weekend, and you're in the 4V the following weekend, and then maybe in the 2V. Yeah, who knows?
You've not been having a good few races.
Yeah. So it kind of becomes a bit less about the duel,
Right. Yeah.
and more about kind of what you're doing for the crew and like how the crew does, how the race is, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I guess as well, it's a one-off race. I think like more of Henley is sort of tactics of, well, if we get up by enough, then we'll lead off because tomorrow might be difficult.
Yeah.
You're kind of invested in this one event. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas, the US duels always felt more like you're just practicing doing your best 2K.
Yeah.
And there happens to be a boat alongside you that you would like to beat.
One thing I got to ask about Princeton: how deep is that lake? Because the speeds that come out of it are pretty unreal.
Yeah.
I've heard that it's not very deep, and therefore it gets like hotter than a bath, and that's why the speeds are so fast. Maybe Princeton's just fast.
No, I mean, well, maybe it's both.
Or the course is slightly short or something like that.
Yeah, you definitely do fast. I remember we did like 3/8 sub 5:30, I think, once when I was there. It was like a ripping tailwind, to be fair. I think the 3V like went 5:29 point something, which must have been fake. Like, I don't know. Like that seems, that always felt a bit iffy to me. But
No stream or anything.
it definitely makes. There's not, I don't know. There's no stream, but it's fast. It's for some reason a very, very fast course.
I think it is the heat. I think I was talking to someone about it because I was like, can it really make that much difference? And I think it does. And it's not like it's not incremental, kind of like when it gets really hot, it starts to make a lot more difference. I don't know the science. Someone will probably say that I've got that all wrong. Well, 2014, the World Championships on the Bosban in Amsterdam, that's when the Sinkovic brothers first broke the 6-minute barrier in a double, and there was a scorching heat that day. So the commentators were talking about that. It's got like that perfect tailwind. Oh, does it? Yeah, it's always known to be a really fast. It's just got like it's always tailwind direction. It does pick up when we're there for entry, but quite often it's like fast tailwind. So you would have probably had GPS speed coaches like during this piece as well, with some of the splits, like during those 3 years going sub 5:30, like, right, we're 1:11 off the start.
Well, yeah, I guess. And then, I guess you're basing it like 123s maybe.
It's going to go good as the cocks to look down at those numbers.
Yeah. No, it was cool. But it's not like we were the fastest team in the country, so.
It's even more wild to me. I was going to ask, was there like a difference in the way that you had to row technically? Was it like a different technical model that all the athletes had to subscribe to in Princeton over St. Paul's? Did you have to change the way that you rowed?
I think there wasn't, we didn't really have sort of one idea necessarily of what we wanted the stroke to. I feel like that was kind of, it wasn't an issue at Princeton. I think it's just kind of how things were, just because we had such a big team and so many guys coming from different places. So whereas, Bobby had a pretty clear technical vision, and that's kind of, but he only had 8 guys that he was trying to, instill that vision in. Whereas at Princeton, it was much more about kind of doing certain basic physiological things really, really well, and getting speed that way. And then, the technical side of things at Princeton wasn't, they just weren't like our massive focus, I guess. We just did a lot of intensity. We did a lot of pieces. We moved guys around the whole time. Yeah. And we tried to, make boats go as fast as possible, which was really, really fun. But I don't know.
No, it's kind of like what Redgrave said about racing at Henley a few years ago when they did like one of the first promotional videos when the race first went live, and he just basically was saying like, you don't need to row perfectly, so long as you're big, strong, and you can put the work down, you're going to win quite a lot of races. So that's basically it. Why focus on changing the way that 80 guys row if you can just make them row really fucking hard, and then
absolutely
go speed that way.
Absolutely. I think like certainly for the British guys really who go to pretty much any American university program, that's kind of always the thing that they complain about, I guess, is this like, oh, we don't have a technical model here. Like, I don't know what what we're supposed to be doing. It's like, I don't know what it is about British rowers that make us like hyper tuned to technical coaching, but
I think it attracts, the way that we row in the UK, like obviously even more so now with the data, but it attracts
athletes who like to get into the data.
Yeah. Whereas I think the American systems are much more just about like, we're just gonna pull really hard and we're gonna get really, really strong and really, really fit. I think it's a very fun way to race and to build a team, and it's certainly been super successful for all American university programs. So, yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of what you're describing of what rowing in Poland's like a little bit. It's less about the technique and it's more about just like getting on with it and just being able to physiologically like just withstand all of those races.
Yeah.
What was it like coming to Henley Regatta from across the pond, having previously obviously won it with St. Paul's?
Well, so we never sent any boats to Henley from Princeton in my time. I was at Princeton. So the Henley boats that I did while I was at Princeton were basically like me and some 3V guys trying to do, joining London Rowing Club and then trying to do a Brit 4 and then just getting bumped up to the visitors every year and then getting absolutely killed in the visitors, which was always fun. But obviously it was a much different sort of campaign for us. Like we were just there for a laugh, really. We thought maybe we'd have an all right shot in the Brit, but we did not have a good shot at the visitors.
Well, you gotta earn your PIMs, don't you?
Well, exactly. Or we'd be wrong to just show up.
That's it.
Got to do a race.
Well, before we get onto Cambridge stuff, we kind of skipped Junior Worlds, which is another thing we could talk about. How was that in your final year?
Yeah. So my J17 year, I went to Coop.
Yeah.
Which was epic. It was in Hungary, which is Szeged. Really cool course, really cool experience. And then, the following year was the Mega Worlds in Rotterdam in 2016.
Yeah, with the seniors.
I remember watching, I think it was Ollie Cook and Callum O'Briaty and Henry Phil. I think. That was awesome. I mean, being a part of the British team, just at the junior level, but still feeling like you're kind of a part of it. I think having the U23s and the seniors there really made it feel like, oh, I actually wrote TV. It's it was amazing. And we were in the 8, and it was a good year for the 8. I think there were quite a few 8s. New Zealand, I remember, had a really good 8 because they were 4th behind us in the final. I think because it was Rotterdam, the previous year had been in Rio.
Okay, yeah.
And the 8s field hadn't been that big, but then in Rotterdam, I feel like everybody sent an 8. So it's like 2 full finals of 8s from all over the world, and it was really exciting.
It's difficult to get into the British team as a junior because you have to like do those relentless 1500 meter seat races at Dorney or Caversham or whatever it is, and it's like
the war of attrition.
It's actually, I mean, looking back on it, honestly, I think final trials was both years were it was like the hardest thing I've done.
This is
rowing.
I did spring assessments in my final year. I also went to final trials, but we didn't get in on the race off. But spring assessments, I did the whole thing, and I pretty much did the maximum racing every day. And I remember, like, it was the absolute hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And
it's hell.
When I left school and went to Leander, I was like, right, like that's what you need to prep for.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't easy, but like I was a week in, I was like, okay, we're not doing 1500s a day. Like, this is pretty chill, actually. We're doing like a 16K single scull and weights. Like, because I was like, oh, that's what it's going to be like every day.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
Oh, it's horrendous. I mean, and I guess you kind of have to do it just because how else are you going to sort through that many kids? But I mean, I never trialed for U23s, but hearing what that process is like relative to the juniors, it just sounds so much chiller. And like you're doing a couple of 1500s a day.
Why didn't you want to do under 23s? Just too much?
No, I think when I was at Princeton, I just never really felt like I was in a place where I should even bother. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that was me being down on myself and like maybe I could have made a good crack at it, but I don't know. I feel like those years for me as a rower, like absolutely loved them, loved being a part of that team. Princeton, I don't regret a single day of being there. Really fantastic. But just from a personal sort of performance standpoint, I just wasn't getting the most out of myself. And so I kind of got to the end of every season and I'm in no place to trial for under 23s.
That's pretty like adult attitude, even at that age. You know, like there's a lot of athletes that push, go for the next thing. And like, I definitely see some who maybe like go for that next level, spend 2 years like really, really struggling at it.
Yeah.
Get hurt because they're overworking, and then pop out the other end like hating the sport. So I think there's a lot to be said for like actually thinking about, do I want to do this, and like does this make sense for me?
No, definitely. And I think it really has allowed the last few years at Cambridge to feel like I've really stepped on, and I've I don't know, it's been a really nice, as I look back on my time rowing, it feels like it's been a fantastic progression up to this point, you know, and I feel like I'm now on top of where I've ever been, which is really nice to feel. I'm kind of going out on a high, and I'm still really, really enjoying it, but I also feel like, okay, I've done what I've wanted to do. But yeah,
you want to leave the sport satisfied.
Yeah.
So at the end of your time in Princeton, what would you say was like the thing that you'll really reflect back on and like miss the most from like being a part of the rowing team there?
I think just the team, really. Just the guys, you know, being a part of that atmosphere. And we were a really close team. Every year that I was there, obviously there's a lot of returners, right? You have 3 years worth of guys returning. Only the seniors leave, and then the juniors, sophomores, freshmen all step up, and then a new group of freshmen come in. So there's a lot of consistency year on year, and we just had a really strong sort of connected and close group of people, and we did everything together. You know, we were always hanging out with each other. Like, I don't know, we constantly were in different people's rooms, partying, whatever, you know, watching movies, you know, going to the mall, I don't know, doing American things, going and shooting guns at the gun range or something. But
was it a lot of different nationalities as well?
Yeah. So we had quite a few Aussies, Kiwis, some Europeans as well, a lot of Brits, obviously, and Americans, and and it was just a really, really good group of guys, and all of my best memories sort of come from that team environment, and a lot of it from out on the water as well, because I think that closeness really carried over to the training. We had a lot of fun training together. Just sort of getting stuck in match dates, and
you work harder for your mates, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think there's things at Princeton that the UK could like do as well as, or they do much better? Like, would you think there's things that could be brought back to improve what we did?
No, that's a good question. It's a hard question. I feel like so much of how the American system works is kind of predicated on having the bodies and the talent. And it's so much harder in the UK. I feel like there's so many fewer kind of people to choose from. There's just like not that base of talent that sticks around in the UK, and I think Brooks absorbs quite a lot of it as well. I think Brooks kind of operates quite similarly almost to an American university program. I think they have that same kind of simplicity in the way that they go about things. It's like simple, practical focuses, not overcomplicating anything, just, you know, getting guys linked together based on kind of physiological goals. And I think you try and do that at like Imperial or UL, where you have 2 8s, and it's just going to be a lot harder, you know.
I saw a video on the weekend, got shown from their training camp, Brooks camp in Wimbledon, with 12 8s.
Yeah,
side by side. I think some men's and the women's, but it's still like, wow.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Imagine doing your own training camp with 12 boats. That's wild, isn't it?
How wide is the lake as well?
It's big,
Like,
it's massive.
But I mean, that's sick. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Makes me want to go to Brooks.
Yeah.
We're not too far away, Tom.
Yeah. So don't tempt me. I don't think my back can manage it anymore.
You could do another 9K.
Maybe one more. One more before my back just disintegrates into ash. So leaving Princeton, did you know you wanted to go to Cambridge? Did you go straight away or have a bit of a break?
So I applied to Cambridge in sort of around Christmas time, I guess, of my senior year, and then got in. So I knew I was going to end up there. Then COVID hit. Senior year gone, unfortunately, in March. So we had to fly home before we started doing any racing, which was pretty tough. So we lost that the whole season, I guess, really. And then I had a break, which I probably shouldn't have, in the sense that I just kind of stopped training altogether because I was sad, and showed up to Cambridge at the end of August in pretty bad shape, but well rested.
Well, I mean, like,
so there was that. But yeah, and kind of got stuck in and had a bit of a difficult path back to fitness.
Yeah.
What did Rob Baker say to you about your fitness levels when you rocked up? Or was it still Trapmore at that time?
It was Baker.
Okay.
He wasn't impressed.
He was like, hang on, this guy's come from Princeton.
No, yeah. It was pretty embarrassing, really.
I remember when, it's not quite on the same level, but when I rode for Wales as a junior, J16 pair, and we rode, like, we trained like crap. We paddled like crap. And I think, like, the coach for 2 days was like, what have we got going on? These guys are awful. And then we finally, before we went on to competition, we did like a training piece, and he was like, okay, it's not going to embarrass me. We just feel like so proud. It only came together at rate, but I guess that's the way you want it.
Yeah.
It's so hard coming back to the sport after you've taken a break, though. Like, I went through something similar between like 2016 and 2017, which is when I joined Newcastle.
Yeah.
I've been doing lots of training, no fitness.
Yeah, you just got on the weight.
Yeah, basically rocked up, just barely pulling the UT2s, and like obviously the infamous program like 18Ks, raid 26, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I can definitely understand the sentiment of that.
If you put on like 5-10 kilos of like fresh muscle, like imagine having to also, and being unfit from not doing any aerobic stuff. Like that's just gonna like suck the oxygen out of you.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure. I was going to leave it there.
Every summer there's like a group of guys, and I've been part of that group, who are like, I'm not going to do much cardio, I'm just going to hit the weights.
We'll get big.
Yeah. Get big. You show up the following season, like, oh, what a terrible mistake.
Get the stringer vest out.
I don't think I've ever heard of a rower retiring not being like, no, I'm just going to cut out the cardio now, keep doing the weights, I'll get big. It's actually harder to maintain. I do know what Ali Webb actually started doing strongman competitions. I don't know if you know him, but yeah, that was quite cool. He did actually get big. At least someone did it.
Someone found it.
So first year at Cambridge?
Yes.
Got yourself fit again, eventually?
Eventually got myself fit again. I think a big part of that was I was living in a house with 5 other guys on the team, which sort of, because we ended up going to lockdown the whole time.
Yeah, still.
Yeah, that was like, became our sort of training hub.
Cool.
And actually really the training hub for quite a lot of the team, because we had a back garden that could fit 3 ergos side by side.
Nice.
Whereas pretty much everyone else was living in college in their own room and were literally having to erg by their bed, which really was like, I couldn't even imagine doing that. So I know one guy would have to set up in his college bathroom and do the erg, because it was like the only place he could get a big enough window to open or something, so he could get some airflow.
At least you'd get to training on time, Pete.
I think I'd
still be late.
I think I'd find a way to be late still. But yeah, that sounds like miserable experience, doing it in your dorm.
No, yeah, horrendous. So the fact that we had a house and that had a garden, and we had the O's in the garden, we put a piece of tarpaulin over the we like strung it up between the fence and the tree, so we had a nice little
back to the Rocky Gym.
Yes,
style.
indeed. Well, and yeah, then that was a huge thing, because we were like, all right, we're gonna crush this. You know, we're gonna like really revel in being able to train together still. We're gonna basically say to ourselves that Oxford don't have this, and we're just gonna hit it really hard. And so we're doing basically 2 sessions a day every day in the garden, which was surprisingly quite fun, and we really just sort of found quite a lot of joy in it somehow. I think it just was really the guys that I was living with. So we had the president that year, Callum Sullivan, really, really good rower, and he was leading the squad really well. And then we had me, a guy called Garth Holden, who just graduated from Yale, South African guy. He was really sort of brought all the energy, sort of crazy, fantastic character, Garth. Like, he really kind of led a lot of our training as well. And then an older guy, Quinton from Brown. I say older, he's like 28. He felt way older at the time. He had come from Brown and then had taken a break in rowing, and he was like our kind of wise, sage guy. And then a guy called Drew Taylor, who had stroked the Stanford varsity. And then one of the undergrads from Cambridge, Reef Verica. And we just formed a really tight unit in that house. I mean, it's literally like every great year I can think of, it's like at the core of it, it's just really tight units, like really close groups. And I think that house was like, it was amazing for us, really, for the whole team.
Well, it produced a result because you guys ended up winning the boat race that year.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what was the coaching setup like when you were all sort of like training and you're in different units? Was there like a lot of contact that you've had with like Rob Baker, etc.?
Yeah. So Rob really worked hard to basically coach virtually while we were locked down. So we'd be sending videos of ourselves to him, and we'd be doing weekly sort of chats with him. He'd do Zoom calls with the team pretty often. He got a lot of old blues in as well, like on Zoom, to talk to us, to sort of try and make us feel like we were part of this thing, like we were going to do the boat race, like it was still a thing, and we were the Cambridge team. So he was doing a lot, actually, and I think that was definitely a big part of how we ended up being successful, was the fact that through the team basically completely breaking down, it still felt quite cohesive. And then our assistant coach was a guy called Jordan Stanley, who also did really, really well, I think, with that. And then basically any time we were allowed back out on the water, we just did a ton of technical stuff. I think did it really effectively.
When did you first get back on the water? It must have been like around April time, if I remember correctly, when the country got reopened.
Yeah, no. So I guess the lockdown, there was a lockdown from January onwards, right?
Yeah.
To April. And then we were allowed to take 12 guys out of that lockdown. And Oxford were also allowed to do it. Like by the government, basically. In order,
professional
thing, in order to race the race. So I think it was 3 weeks before the boat race, we were able to get an 8 and a 4 out at Ely, and then we spent a week selecting the blue boat. So, and those 12 guys, obviously the team was much bigger than 12 guys, so that was all on ergs, basically. It was like whoever had been doing the bet. And Rob, that was all he could go on.
Yeah.
And he made no sort of secret of that, and it was a really sort of tough thing, I think. And there were some guys who were not in that 12 who, I think realistically could have had as good a shot at actually making the blue boat in seat racing, but it's just like, what can you do?
Yeah.
And as I said, the training situations were so different for different guys as well. So, we had a massive advantage, I think, in our house. Some guys were doing everything completely by themselves, and it was, horrendous. So, but yeah, so it was a tough thing, but we were able to take 12 guys out, spent a week selecting the blue boat, which was basically seat racing and a bit of telemetry, and then 2 weeks to try and win the race, which was
that's like a junior worlds or like under 23.
Yeah.
Right. So you got 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Fine speed.
Yeah. But I guess we didn't have any other boat.
Right.
Because the 4, I think someone got injured in the 4, so they ended up sort of doing a pair and a single, basically. Weren't really doing any pieces. So we were really it was just us. Everyone else was in lockdown. So it was literally just 1A going up and down the Ely course. We had no sort of way to gauge how fast we were going. There's a bit of stream on Ely, so you never really know how fast you are. So yeah, it was a bit kind of like,
I don't know. I definitely remember a few people sort of like complaining about, it's not this and it's not that, and they haven't enough time, and it's not an Ely and stuff. And I felt like always being like, but it's better than nothing, right? Like, don't we want something?
Yeah.
People always complain, I guess, you want it to be a bit more perfect, but yeah, I was like, at least we got it done. Like,
yeah,
we got to see some race.
I think, it was a great race in the end.
Yeah, it was cool. It was good to watch.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was like this boat race. I'm watching a boat race, but it's not the boat race.
Yeah. And yeah, for us, I mean, we really didn't think we were going to win, which made it better when we did, obviously. Because that Oxford crew, I think in hindsight, probably weren't actually that far ahead of us on paper, but they definitely felt quite far ahead of us, just based on the fact that so many of them had been at Oxford, had done boat race seasons. They had the only senior international, Martin Baraxo, and we were relatively, unknown group of sort of ex-US guys, a lot of whom had been in like the 3V, like me and Garth and Quinton, and so yeah. But I guess it made it all the sweeter, and it made the challenge super fun to try and put this thing together in 2 weeks. And I think the boat felt great. It always felt great, like
the honeymoon period.
Yeah. Well, exactly. You can't, and there was no time for it to like stagnate or like for sort of different things to come in where you're like, oh wait, this doesn't feel as good anymore. It's kind of like immediately clicked. We just got faster, all the way up until race day, and then we just kind of had the perfect race. I think
that's literally all you want. Yeah. That's literally exactly how you described the dream situation.
Yeah, no, it was, and the fact that it was on home water as well. I'm like, brilliant.
The distance was different though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Ely is 4.8k, I think, or maybe 4.9.
Cool.
But it's not as, the stream obviously is much less fast than the tideway.
Yeah.
So it takes, I think it was like maybe a 13-14 minute race at Ely.
Okay.
So I mean, it took us 18 minutes this year to do
it was a long one.
Almost 19 minutes to do the boat race and the tideway. So, it's a bit shorter, but.
Was there a bit of a worry that if the Ely race goes really well, they're going to move it away from the tideway?
I don't know. I don't think Oxford would want to do that. Yeah.
No, that'd be pretty rogue, wouldn't it? Yeah. So I guess like coming back from that, you wanted to experience like a proper full season at Cambridge afterwards, like, training in the magical boathouse that you've got over there, and with proper like leadership, but also like the sessions hit different when there's like 30 guys side by side just erging one playlist, just screaming, shouting, chain whipping, etc.
No, yeah, for sure.
Coming back from that into the next season, what did you find that was different, or was it what you would have expected from the start when you first applied to Cambridge?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was quite different to what we'd had the previous year. I mean, yeah, the whole sort of training was different. The team, the turnover is huge, obviously, because you have so many guys doing 1 year master's degrees. That kind of generally forms the bulk of the blue boat every year, and not that many undergrads relative to pretty much any other university team. So yeah, it was definitely a very different thing, and I think because of that turnover, the culture can change quite a lot. I think that second year, fantastic year in terms of who we had. Like we had Tom George, Ollie Wynne Griffith, who they just won a bronze in Tokyo, and we had a guy called Simon Church who was in the Swiss lightweight 4 that won in 2016, and we had Jamie Hunter who was in the Kiwi lightweight 4 as well, and then a guy from the Cal 1V, George Finlayson, and yeah, so it was a strong squad. I don't know if we ever got it right in terms of the way we approached it culturally, and I don't know exactly what it is, because culture is such an intangible thing, right? It's so hard to put your finger on exactly like what makes a strong team or what doesn't. But I think maybe it was us returners. We were kind of a bit too insular. We didn't really bring the guys together enough. So it was a really fun year. I think for me as well, I just wasn't performing at the level that I had been the year before. And I don't really know why. I just kind of, I feel like you kind of have those times, right, where you go through a bit of a trough. And yeah, so I ended up in Goldie, which was great, and it was really fun, and it was a great boat, and very fast, I think, just given the depth of the team that year. But yeah, I just it was a harder year. I guess part of it as well is like Oxford was so strong that year that you can't help but have that color your season when you know that you're kind of going up against something that's like, is just going to be really, really difficult. And And so I think we gave it our best. We gave it our best. So I think we really left no stone unturned, and the training that year was really, really strong. But it was tough. It was tough.
Was there any did you ever kind of feel intimidated rowing with rowers like that and come back from the Olympics, or were you quite quickly just all part of the same squad?
We were definitely all part of the same squad. I personally felt like I was definitely towards the start of the season where I was once again not in the best shape. I was kind of like, oh, these guys must think I'm so bad, like I'm so slow. Which was I don't know. But then as it went on, I definitely kind of relaxed into it. And honestly, Tom and Ollie, particularly, just such great team guys, and they were so supportive of everyone, and they've continued to be massive sort of Cambridge people, which has been the best thing, because I think you get a lot of those Olympic caliber athletes kind of rolling through, ticking off the boat race on their CV, and then kind of moving on, particularly if they're going on to do another Olympics. But Tom and Ollie have stayed so involved, and every season they pretty much for all of our fixtures they'll ride in the launch, they come out to Ely to watch us, they'll chat to us before the race and stuff, and
they're still repping Cambridge to this day. I think they're still representing Cambridge to this day. So
quite often they'll wear the blue boat Zephyr and stuff. And, I guess they were they were CBC for the Goblets last year, weren't they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a CBC Lucerne as well, when they it goes to their clubs.
I know, it's great. It's so nice to have those guys feel like they're in your corner. It's just brilliant.
That's cool. Soon as you mentioned it, obviously it's the thing you don't want to think about, but how much in a year is Oxford the focus, or how much are you trying to not make it the focus? Is it because I think that's one thing in the media where it's they absolutely hate each other, they've got pictures of each other's on their walls, that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't I do. No, I mean, it's an interesting one. I think the longer I've been a part of Cambridge, the more strongly I've felt about beating Oxford, and the kind of need to beat Oxford, which is kind of a strange thing. When I first showed up at Cambridge, I guess probably the objective was to be in the boat race, try and make the boat, which I thought, would be an amazing thing. And it was an amazing thing. I didn't really think, my coach will probably hate me for saying this, but I didn't really think that much about beating Oxford until we were in the 8, and it was 2 weeks before. I was suddenly okay, now we've got to race Oxford. Then compared to this year, where pretty much from day one, I was I think part of it is being president as well. So there's a kind of added weight of responsibility. But pretty much from day one, I was okay, we got to beat these guys, and it's going to be hard this year, but we got to do this.
There's a lot more skin in the game. You've been doing it longer as well. But I also remember thinking certainly when you're not sure of your place, thinking selection for under 23s being far more difficult and stressful than actual competition.
Absolutely.
It's now I'm in the boat, so just whatever, we do the best performance. But before then it's am I going to make the boat?
No, for sure. For sure. And selection still, every year it occupies a lot of your brain space.
And you guys go quite late with it. Changes can be made.
Oh yeah. Big time. And this year particularly, Rob was I'm going to leave it open until the start of March, basically, which is really late for us, because he wanted guys to keep pushing. We had much more of an emphasis on telemetry and raw sort of power stuff this year, and it's basically if you're able to produce numbers, we're going to try and get you in the boat. And so that stuff, we were still doing power ranked pieces, way up until a couple of weeks before the race, and with the potential to change lineups based on that data. So that was selection, still very, very prevalent for me as well. But I think the Oxford piece, beat Oxford piece definitely has just gotten more and more and more. And even through those periods of selection, I've still been we've got to be Oxford.
Yeah, I think you use what you can, right? I've always thought, obviously I rode at Leander for a while. There's a couple, there's some hate or jealousy or whatever goes that way. It's I'm cool, okay. Everyone wants to beat us. That's a good thing. And we don't always win, and we had some humdingers with Brooks and all the rest of it, but great, I'll use it. And if you've got Oxford there, why not use it? You know,
exactly.
With the data and stuff. So are you guys got like the live feedback screens while you're rowing? So it's like being on the ergo while you're in the boat.
Yeah.
I've never, that didn't exist.
Really?
Show my age.
Yeah.
Yeah. I finished 2015 was when I stopped. I wasn't quite in yet. What's
Yeah.
that like to row with?
You know, it's, and we started using them in 2022, but we were kind of off and on with them. I think a lot of programs use them like that. Basically just kind of have them on occasionally so guys can see where they're at, but you know, you don't sort of commit to using them the whole time. I think there's probably a reluctance across the rowing world to make rowing like erging. I think that's kind of maybe where that comes from. You know, there's still this sort of, I don't know, I guess thoughts about boat feel and all of that. That's like, you can't see that on a screen, right?
Yeah.
You can't bring a crew together just by everybody individually looking at a power curve.
It's pretty distractive, right?
Well, so this brings me on to my thoughts on it, which is actually, I think this is the way to row, basically. And this is the way that all teams are gonna start to train. Because it's what Brooks have been doing, and Brooks have been winning everything for the past few years, and now teams are starting to do it, and the American teams are starting to do it. And it basically is just like, when you think about it, if you're being coached well enough to row pretty well, then all the screen is doing is keeping you honest, right? And it's quite hard to be honest with yourself in terms of how, you know, hard you are going if you don't know how hard. Like, you wouldn't cover your ergs. I mean, I guess some people might, but you wouldn't cover your ergs in 2K. You know, it's too like risky.
Yeah.
And like, you can convince yourself, okay, I know how hard I'm going, like in the middle of this, you know, in the middle of the Henley final. But I don't know, there's like a lot there. There's
too many other factors.
Yeah. So if you are able to get comfortable enough with a screen such that it isn't really a distraction, it's really just sort of keeping you on a certain standard.
Yeah.
So you're outputting a certain wattage every stroke in the UC2. You learn what your sort of upper limits are for wattage output in pieces, and you are like, and you know, you're working to a certain curve, certain lengths, and you're basically like, okay, well, I know that in the Henley final I'll be able to do 400 and whatever watts. All it does is like keep you to that. And I think it's been big for us. And I think it's going to be big for a lot of teams, really.
I mean, clearly, like, Cambridge has been on an incredible streak those last few years, and like, it's if that sort of technology will become ubiquitous, then like, there's really no hiding in a boat anymore.
No, you
can't hide in the middle of an 8.
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's always been kind of the argument, isn't there, of like blasting off a 117, 18, 19, what it is, if it is in your first 500, is not technically the most efficient way to win a race. No, like the most efficient thing would be to, can't remember what it was, I think it was a Dutch crew, would have been around 2013, 2012, was it? That flat paced, can't remember if it was a World Cup or a Worlds, Jürgen did a little thing about it actually, and was talking about this factor. They flat paced the whole thing, so like at the first 500, they're like 4 seconds behind. They're like 2 lengths down on the whole pack.
Yeah.
But just ignore it, and then they just did the same thing, came through. Because you can't quantify the psychological advantage of being ahead, right?
Quite.
But and then certainly when you're starting to talk about the length of your guys' race, being down by a certain amount is irrelevant if you know, you can just be perfectly on your pace.
Yeah.
And it definitely looks like you guys have raced a long, planned to race a long race. So I think like that kind of shows that things work.
No, for sure. I mean, that was kind of the whole focus of this season, was we kind of went into it with the knowledge that Oxford were going to be really, really strong. They had a really, really strong team. The way we were going to be able to beat them is by using a combination, I guess, of our own boat race experience, because that is something that we had over them. We have done it before. We know what it's like to be deep into that race. And just like, we were going to grind it out, and we were going to use the watts, and we were just going to hold ourselves to that. And that if we're, you know, relentless enough on that pace, and if we were just completely consistent, then, you know, if it was a good enough pace, they weren't going to be able to live with it. And yeah, that was kind of how we built our whole sort of training ethos, and that was what we were thinking about going into the race.
So that brings me from your second year where you made a Goldie boat, won against Oxford.
No, lost against Oxford.
Oh, sorry.
I think I got that wrong.
Yeah. Okay, we might have got that wrong. Okay.
Wikipedia.
Damn it, some Oxford guys edited it.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we both, us and the blue boat lost. So.
Right, okay. So you said that it might have been a bit of a trough year. I guess progress isn't linear, and that will have definitely like inspired you to push on to be in the blue boat next year, which is when you have made it. What was that like as an experience to be in a blue boat, you know, be on the front line of it all, having technically that's your third year at Cambridge, but you haven't like gotten to experience it up until that point?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it was amazing. It was really just the most unique, crazy experience that I've had in the sport. And it was a little bit overwhelming, I think, particularly during race week. I mean, the amount of sudden media attention you get, I mean, you know, you just don't find it anywhere else in rowing. It's a little bit crazy. I don't really know why it's still such a thing, but it really is. You know, every single session, there's a big press launch with a load of paparazzi, basically, with cameras on you the whole time.
So you can't pick your nose.
You can't pick your nose.
No weeing in a bottle.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame, really.
Front page of the...
Exactly. And you get interviewed by journalists, and people kind of recognize you. And particularly if we stay in a house in Barnes, and Barnes is like the prime for people who know about the boat race. So like, oh, you're at the Cambridge. Good luck against Oxford. I guess we drive the big minibus around, so it's you know, and just the level of excitement is just goes through the roof, and then on race day, being in the boat on race day, just unbelievable, really, and particularly the moment where you walk out, where the shutters. So we boat from KCS, and there's like very loud shutters, and they crank them up on the chain. And there's just like a sea of people and just absolute wall of noise. And you get it at Henley, but the scale of the boat race is just unbelievable, because you literally got like people as far as the eye can see down either side of the embankment. It feels like, and yeah, it's just really, really, really exciting. And I really tried that year in 23 to sort of savor those moments. I think it's something that some guys talk about. Obviously, there's a bit of you don't want to be distracted by it, and people are keen for you to lock in and make sure that, you know, your focus doesn't come away from doing the job at hand. But it's also, I don't know, a lot of people I've talked to who have done the race will like recognize what this is and like take it in and enjoy it, because not many people are able to experience what you're about to, you know, do. So I really tried to savor it. And
it sounds like it would have almost been better than racing at World Championships as a junior.
Yeah. I mean, the achievement of being on the GB team was amazing, but in terms of just like a single like moment or like one day just doing the boat race, it's just World Championships don't get that kind of coverage. If it's like, you know, the Super Worlds and whatnot. But so like when you sat on that start line at the boat race, reversing onto the stage, you can't. Do you have to have like your spoons in the water? Do you want to talk about that? Oh yeah. So because there's stream, if you sat with your blades in the water, basically they kind of get carried backwards. You sort of end up like overextending or whatever, and you've been carried off. So you have to sit. Well, you sit there for quite a while because there's quite a lot of faff, which is a strange, always quite calm, weirdly calm. I think everyone's just kind of goes through a peak of nerves, maybe in the warm up, and then it kind of settles back down as you go through the bridge, and you're just sitting there and you're like, come to terms with the fact that you are actually going to race this race, and there's kind of no turning back at that point. So it's quite calm, and you sit there for a long time. You you're quite far from the crowds. There's like always tons of people on Putney Bridge, but you're further back than I think you expect, maybe, or than certainly that I expected. So you don't really get that much noise from there, and the people on the bank are, you know, not cheering, so it's kind of quiet as well. But yeah, so you sit there, do kit or whatever, and then you come up to front stops, and then your blade is like, you kind of reverse feather it. I don't know how you say it. Yeah, you like kind of
Slightly over feathered.
Yeah, over feather it, I guess. Yeah, so it doesn't catch the water. So you kind of sit there, and you have to do it with both hands basically, so you can like lock it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, you sit there, and then it always takes ages for the attention go, because the coxes are like, I mean, they will not go until the line is absolutely perfect, and it's the tideway, so it's really hard to get it straight. It's usually windy, so you're literally just sitting there for ages, and it's maybe the nerves start to build back up again. But yeah, and then so you have to wait for the go, and then you roll the blade over and take the stroke. So the start is actually a lot slower and more kind of measured and more careful, I think, than you would necessarily think. Because it's basically like, don't screw it up, don't catch a crab. Because that's, you know, you don't want your race to be in the first stroke.
Brutal.
Yeah. So it's quite an interesting challenge, and the way that you prepare for that is basically in the lead up to the race. Rob, or whoever the coach is, grabs you by the stern and kind of pulls you back, and then you sit there getting pulled backwards out at Ely, and then you wait for him to go, and then you lock the blade in and go to kind of mimic that stream flow.
That's interesting. Yeah, I find it. Well, Tom also talks about this, but it's pretty incredible how two coxes in the middle of a river can follow basically a non-existent line to almost perfection.
Yeah,
like it's so weird. Like, especially in this year's race,
on the men's.
No, on the men's side, it was basically, it was perfect. Like,
there was a long shot where they were watching with the Empire, and both crews were like that far apart, and he like got his flag and then put it that flag and put. And I was like he's literally like looking at the line, and like no one's doing anything wrong, and it was for quite a long time, like off the blast at the start as well. It's like we were like, that's amazing, like that is amazing. On that line.
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's easy to kind of take the piss out of a cox, I guess, because, you know, you're doing all the hard work. But actually, in a boat race, I have no idea how Ed managed to do it this year, how any of the coxes do it, really, because the steering is one thing, but also the proximity to the other boat, the very detailed race plan that you kind of develop, and the calls and stuff. I mean, there's just so much to think about, so much to respond to. Yeah, I don't know how. And obviously all the nerves as well, you know, it's like, and there's so much focus on, as a rower, you kind of don't really feel like the spotlight on you, I guess, necessarily, in the way that I think a cox does, because it so often becomes the cox's race. And this year particularly, I think for Ed, coming off of the 23 race where Jasper, our cox, you know, made that move to the Fulham wall that kind of defined the whole race. I think, there was so much talk about that all this season. I don't know how that must have been for Ed, like thinking like, do I have to do something crazy to win this thing? Like, or am I going to try and do something crazy and screw it up? Like what exactly, you know, how do you navigate that? So, you know, there's a ton really to think about, I guess.
As a cox also, like, you basically get the same nerves as a rower, but you have no outlet for your adrenaline. We always talk about that.
Yeah.
So like, you will finish a race, but you'll still be like buzzing. Like, there's no way for like your heart rate to come down and everything. Like, massive respect to them. And every year it just seems to be something like the swimmer, or
I lost a lot of money that year.
Or like, you know, the year that Morgan, the Oxford women's have won, like in 2016, and like Morgan also like made like a pretty decisive move. Morgan Bainham Williams. It's the same race, but how can it be like so excited like year on year? You know,
that's what the Oxford president says that's what Louis Corrigan said in the the documentary series that Road 360 made.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. He was like, "There's always something," and it's true. There is always something.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, part of why the race has such a sort of enduring interest maybe is that it is the same race, but it's so different every year.
Yeah. Emerson made the point that it's, I guess, as we sort of discussed, since the snapping blade incident, it doesn't seem to be clashes anymore. There seems to be like other things that are going on.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's now people have realised it's like maybe a risk too far to try and do that. Although there's definitely been clashes, but
nothing, no like boats getting tied up.
not as much.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, how was that road 360 experience? Certainly, I guess being president as well.
Yeah.
A bit more of a spotlight on you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always quite enjoyed that side of things. My degree is in film, so I kind of enjoy like having them come in and, I like looking at the cameras and sort of just being a part of a production was really cool. It was great to sort of be talking about, to have a bit of an outlet, I guess, to talk about the season. And it really just made it feel like we were kind of building towards that big thing.
Present, yeah.
Yeah.
Like deep in November, it can feel a long way away.
Exactly. Yeah. You kind of feel like you're in a bit of a no man's land, but then having Ben and Tom come and kind of, you're kind of thinking about what's happened so far and then how things are very quickly coming towards you. And it's, it was really fun. It was really fun. And, I really like those guys. I've done quite a lot with them over the past few years. I actually used to write for the Road 360 as well a little bit.
Oh, cool.
When I was a junior. So it was, it's always a good time. I think like the finished product was brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Loved it.
It was awesome.
Yeah. And to be able to like go back and watch it now, obviously nice because we won. So it's like, good to see how things were sort of coming together. But it was just such a nice sort of, summary of the whole season. And
we've been talking over the last season, obviously doing a bit of this in media and stuff, and like talking about what's good for rowing and how you could get more people interested in rowing. Certainly on the circuit, there's a lot of people, there's chatter of rowing's got really serious from a really quick age, and like how can we bring some more fun into it, or how can you kind of make it more of a inclusive sport or sport for spectators? And then like that came out, and we were like, is that? Is that show? Like, is that the gorgeous shots, the drone, the background footage? Like, that was like, wow, we need to be doing that for other bits of our sport. And I know it's expensive to do, but that was awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
So both of the last years that you've rowed in the Blue Boat, did you have the same sort of like outlet on Oxford? Like, what was the feel like in the crew? Did you know you were going to beat them, or what was the sort of expectation that was like carrying amongst you?
Yeah. So I think both years we were underdogs on paper, but every year we've been underdogs on paper. Every one of the 4 years.
I feel like that's the new Cambridge like kind of feeder thing. We spoke before about, everyone starts as an underdog, right? So we always know how to be it. So if you find yourself back in that position, you're like, well, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's almost a more comfortable place to be in.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If you feel like you are favourites from the start, obviously there's a layer of pressure there, an expectation. And I think, you never go into a boat race season being like, we're going to lose. If you did, it would all be over, right? You can't do that. But certainly 23 and 24, we were like, this is going to be a huge challenge. I think 23, like 21, in hindsight, we probably had we were closer on paper than I think we were telling ourselves almost. I think it actually was quite evenly matched in 23. I think probably we had actually, certainly in early season stuff, like in Ford's Head, we'd been ahead. Not by much, but we had been ahead. Mm-hmm. But then they got Felix Drinkle back just after Christmas. So we thought, obviously he's fantastic. That would be quite a big sort of swing towards them, particularly, putting him in the stroke seat. Mm-hmm. That does a lot for a crew. But then obviously there was also like the added pressure for him that was his 4th race and he'd never won. And then coming into it kind of late, we thought, that would be psychologically difficult for him and difficult for everyone. So 23, I think we kind of went into it thinking it would be a big challenge, but knowing that we were pretty close, and we had been quite close. So yeah, well, I mean, I think we had a really good crew, and we raced well, but I think obviously the coxing that year was a huge part of the result, really, because we were down on Oxford, and I don't think we expected to be down off the start. We usually start quite well, and we always thought that Oxford were a bit of a slower starting program, so we were surprised to be down on them, I think. And then the fact that Jasper basically got us a length round that bend was pretty huge, and I think everyone was just like, oh, okay, there's kind of like a sigh of relief down the boat, and it's like, now we're going to relax into our rhythm, and then I think it was really good rowing from like, I don't know, the milepost on. I think really just controlled it.
Plus, that race kind of showed what happens when a stroke man loses the full control of the rowing, which is kind of repeated itself, but not in the same way. The following year,
I mean, like, credit to Oxford in 23, because Felix went in the same way that Matt did this year, but Oxford came back on us with 7 people, which was like, I think we felt like we had it under control, but it was like, damn, like they really, really wanted that, and I feel like there was a lot of passion in that Oxford boat. So I have a lot of respect for that boat. I think that was it was a really good race. It was a close race, really, all the way. I think it was like a length and a quarter, maybe.
Yeah, that's brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
Is there there must be, finishing the line, like the elation, but there must be some sort of sadness to be like, I know that they did exactly what we did. Or you're not really thinking about that Oxford at all?
What do you mean they did exactly what we did?
It's in terms of like feeling sorry for them,
Oh,
it's gotta suck to.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
I mean, I've been on both sides.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. No, so it's, I don't know. It's hard. Like I really like all the Oxford guys. Like, I've had a lot of really, really good friends row for Oxford. I have, no sort of ill feelings towards any of the Oxford guys, but there is a lot of deep rivalry between Cambridge and Oxford, and a lot of the season is like very fixated on the goal of beating one crew. So I would say when you cross the line, I'm not sure if it's like feeling sorry. I think there's a lot of respect. There's a ton of mutual respect, particularly when it's a really good race. You kind of you recognize what you've both just gone through. It's like a pretty hellish experience, really. But I doubt that they would want us to feel sorry for them. I wouldn't have wanted Oxford to feel sorry for me when they beat us in 22. It's just kind of part of the game, right? It's
I maybe phrased it wrong, just in terms of like, having been on both sides. What's it feel like being?
Yeah, because it's like a rivalry predicated not on hatred but on like mutual respect.
Yeah, definitely.
Dave Bell put that together like very nicely. Definitely. So, what would you say? I don't know if I can like even ask, because like, if that's giving away like too much juice or anything like that. But like, how critical of a role does coaching play in the boat race? So, for example, how much change will like Rob make year on year, or like to the program or to the way that things worked, or is the program pretty much set and then the machine is ticking over, or is it very sort of like dynamic and on a fly each year?
No, I think one of Rob's great strengths is that he's very willing to adapt. And as I said, like, I don't think it's giving away too much juice to be like, we use telemetry a lot more. Like we've shifted our program more towards that. I mean, you can see in the boat race that we got the screens on. So it's, I hope he doesn't hate me for saying it, but no, Rob is, he'll adapt, and he'll adapt to the people. And, we get very different looking squads every year. So 23, I think we probably had one of the smallest, lightest blue boats in recent memory. And I think, the training was a little bit different just based on the guys that we had. And I think because you have way fewer people, but you do have like very key guys that have to be in there because they're really good, but that have no like prior Cambridge experience, you kind of have to start building a bit around them as well. So yeah, but I think what Rob is also really good at is he has very like Bobby. I think he has very, very clear ideas about what it is that makes eights go really fast. What makes boats in general go really fast, but eights specifically. And he's able to get that across super effectively and super clearly, and build units that end up being way faster than I think they have any right to be. Like, you know, our erg averages every year compared to Oxford are just terrible. Like, absolutely.
You're talking 2K ergs, right? And
well,
it's not
and 5Ks
as well, yeah.
And 5Ks. You know, we are physiologically, I think we're always behind, but he just finds these kind of lynch points, I think. And it's a little bit different every year, but there's definitely a lot of continuity as well. And yeah, I think that's kind of been what's so strong about.
Looking from the outside, I like the technical model of Cambridge. It is a pleasure to watch. Like, it's exactly the type of rowing that I like to see, which is just long, loose, driven together, and rhythmical. Like, it's just good. I could just go on and on and on. But yeah, even Dave Bell said, like, when he first came to Cambridge, he was a bit more coming back off the back of like his weights career. A little bit that he did that Molesey, like a bit stocky, a bit bulky, a bit more in the upper body. And then like he said that Rob really did a great job at like sort of lengthening him out and like slimming him down, making him more prepared for like the 15 to 18 minute sort of race rather than, you know, three rep max bench press.
No, for sure.
You guys do a lot of work on RP3. How would you say is that to prevent injuries, or can you get like a just better quality of training, or how does that compare to Concept 2?
I think it's better quality, particularly so we use the RPs for UCSU, and we do the hard stuff on the Concept. I think so we can you know, compare times more accurately to general standards, I guess, on the Concept. But doing the steady on the RP, I mean, there's just so much more like to look at, and you know, you get just data that obviously you don't with the Concept, like particularly length. It's really, really good for length, and then power curves, obviously much more kind of accurate and granular with the RP3. So yeah, there's just a lot more you can do technically, and Rob and Bill, the assistant coach, will coach guys a lot during those long, steady sessions. And I think it's just been a really good thing for us. I really think that is definitely the way that, you know, if programs have RP3s, they should be using them particularly for the longer stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been in programs that do a little bit too much of like mileage for the sake of mileage, and no one's watching, and just pin your score on when you're done. And
sure.
Yeah, and that, you can bed in bad stuff as well as good stuff, honey.
No, definitely.
Cool. So I guess let's talk a little bit about maybe the more decisive bit of 24. We kind of spoke about the start. Like you said, you knew going up against a difficult one. Were you pretty prepared to go down off the start? Was that part of the plan, or was it like, let's just race it as it goes?
Yeah. So we thought that they would probably be really quick off the start. And I think you never like want to be down off the start. It's always pretty grim, particularly in the boat race, because it's so easy to suddenly be out of it. And when you're out of it, you're out of it. Like, you get washed down, you don't know where you are. It's horrible. So yeah, we were definitely thinking they'd be quick. So we figured that we would basically just have to really try and hang on and use that first bend. We were on Middlesex again, use that first bend as much as we could. But then what we sort of, I guess our race plan had basically been like, just negate as much as you can around the Surrey bend, like try not to be down through Hammersmith Bridge. But if you are down, just don't let them like get more out in front of you. Like if you can, he was basically like, if you can get through Hammersmith Bridge in front and then not lose more than like half a length, you'll win, because there was no stream going like towards Barnes. There was basically no stream. So you could fully cut off that last Middlesex bend and basically take quite a lot of the course off.
Yeah.
So Middlesex was like a dream station for that last bit.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, if you're in touch, you can absolutely row through and yeah. And I think every crew basically did cut off that last bend. It's just, it was quite a big gap. But yeah, so we were just prepared to be in it for a long time. We thought it would go really late in, and that would be where we'd have to make our move, was like probably 10 to 12 minutes in. And really all of our thinking was kind of around that. And it's a difficult like place to be, because it's just a hard thing to get your head around. It's like, I'm going to have to put myself through that amount of suffering to then do the thing that's going to win us this race. And it's just like, yeah, it's just as much as you know, like that you have to do it, and you have to do it for everyone, you have to do it for yourself. It's like, oh, I really don't want to do that. You know, it's just horrible. I want to just, make this easy, try and win it.
At what point did you realize, obviously, that something was going on with the stroke sheet? And like, was it a bit of a shock to the crew, where you're like, shit, like this is like really up in the mix now?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's weird. Like the boat race is a weird thing to row, because it's so intense, and there's so much build up, there's so much pressure, and you kind of think about it the whole time. You've obviously seen 100 boat races before, so you kind of have this idea of what it's like to be in it, and then you get in it, and then it's just like a kind of strange, it's not like an anticlimax, it's just a really hard slog. And you never feel, it's not like an emotional thing at all. You're just kind of locked in, and then eventually something happens and you find yourself in a winning position or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the 24 race was really like that. It was like we found ourselves in a winning position. We just walked away. At no point was it like, oh my God, we're doing it. It was just like, oh God, okay, like whatever, like just keep going. You're kind of, I don't know, it's a strange headspace. There's a lot of like, oh, we just like can't mess anything up. Just like, don't even think about anything. Just keep moving. And then, yeah, so we got to Barnes. It felt like a complete blur. Oxford were way away. Like, I don't even know at what point we opened out like 5 lengths, but suddenly they were just way away. But no one really said anything about it. I think Ed was just, doing his standard thing. And then basically Ed started saying, Matt, 0 watts. And at that point I was like, what? Why is he saying 0 watts? It was basically because I think he could see before anyone else that Matt was blowing, and he was just like, Matt, just don't push anymore. And then I started to see Matt's blade going. And then we went through Barnes Bridge, and then Ed was like, okay, Luca's trucking. But again, like we were still in it's just like a strange thing where there's no emotional reaction to it. No one said anything. I'm in front. You're just kind of in the flow state. It was like, all right, we're way ahead still. So at no point did it start to feel like we were suddenly under a lot of pressure again from Oxford. So it just became like, let's just get over the line. Obviously, it got really heavy because we were suddenly with 7 people. The watts fell off a cliff.
Yeah. That'd be fun to see.
Yeah, honestly, like, oh man. But yeah, we just kind of had to get to the line. I spent pretty much the entire of the last 3 minutes with my head over my shoulder, like, where is the line?
Was it in doubt, would you say?
When Matt blew? No, not really. I mean, I think we were just too far up, and they didn't have much of a, I think maybe if they'd noticed earlier and they'd been like, I guess it was hard to see, but if Will had been like, Cambridge had done, like, put in 1 minute of absolute just sprint for a minute, then maybe they could have got back in touch, and then I think maybe something could have happened.
The distance was enough. The only worry was like, is he gonna
catch a crowd?
It's quite funny though. So I spoke to loads of people since and been like, when did you notice? Like, I saw it earlier. It's like, whoa, because some people like Cox's, I think, because they're looking at that end of the boat. They clicked a bit quicker. Awesome. Like the sense of like being the underdogs, maybe having some of the media against you, or like essentially like being able to like recreate that win of like, we knew what we were going to do, we knew we were capable of it, and it doesn't matter that anyone else thought otherwise.
Yeah.
Kind of, retribution is the wrong word, but like, was there a sense of like, told you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there was a bit of that. I think, like, obviously there have been a lot over the year of, it was like Oxford turning the tide, you know, the kind of sense that it was going to be their year, and they had the guys to make it their year, I think. But, you know, we always had belief, and I think Rob instilled a huge amount of belief in us. And so I think it wasn't like a vindictive, like, haha, we got you. Like, it was just a fantastic testament to the work that we'd put in, and the group that we had, and the fact that we were really willing to just to do what it took to get that win. And it was everyone in the boat. It was an absolute, like, and it was Goldie as well. You know, Goldie also kind of underdogs going into it, like, hadn't had the fixture results that Oxford had, and they absolutely from stroke one, you know, were far and away the winners. So it's like just the whole squad, and the lightweights also won, and the spares as well. So none of the men's boats, all the Cambridge men won this year, and they did in 23 as well. So it was really like
another big pisser. Can you remember any of it?
No, yes, I can. Well, I had to give a speech at the dinner, so I didn't want to get drunk. But it was, I think we just built something really strong and really quite hard to beat. Obviously the boat race is very different every year, so it's never a given. But I think the general sort of foundation of what we do every year is really, really, really strong, and it produces crews that are very willing to go out and win that race. And I think a lot of it is about willingness to do what you need to do to win, because it's such a hard race. It's so long. There are so many factors, and it's like, it so often comes down to like, just, you've got to take moments, you know, and you've just got to use them, and you've got to do what the other crew isn't willing to do.
I think you said it with belief, you know, and it takes years to forge, and you can lose it in seconds, but once it's there, it's pretty powerful thing, especially in an 18-minute race. No one's ever done that race and not had the demons.
No, for sure.
Choices and
for sure.
The statistics. We come second through Hammersmith. All
that
stuff comes, and then that's the power of Cambridge, I guess.
You broke a lot of curses this year, I feel like, with, you know, being the underdog squad, not having the same number of, I think, internationals, I could be wrong here, that Oxford did. Technically being down on papers, fixtures possibly like,
I think that's why the underdog, wasn't it? The fixtures maybe win.
Yeah, so for example, then you go into that race, and then all the possible excuses, the fixtures, the Oxford crew, and this and that, etc. Like, you've shown that you can win despite all of that. So for the future generations of Cambridge rowers, that must be a huge confidence boost.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think guys, they increasingly, we have people coming to Cambridge because they're like, this is the place to be if you want to win the boat race, but also if you want to like be in some really, really good boats, you know, like just boats that clearly are rowing really well in a really hard race with guys that aren't necessarily the most seasoned international athletes, the most experienced rowers. Just because I think, you know, Rob has been so good at doing what he does and bringing those crews together. I think it's definitely an exciting place to be.
How does it feel like to be leaving the presidency role? Is it a bit of a relief because you had so much pressure put on you, or like because of like all the extra tasks that you had to do, or you're kind of happy, like done with it, happy to pass the torch now?
Yeah, I think it is a relief, to be honest. Like, it's been an amazing privilege to be able to lead the squad, and obviously there's so much history around the presidency, and it's kind of it's quite a big thing. There are sort of things that come with it beyond being the captain of any other team, really, because I don't know, because it is so caught up in the whole history of the race. But yeah, like, the pressure is pretty great, and it's not really pressure that's put on you by anyone else, more so than just like the pressure of the event, and like the pressure of knowing that you have 7 months to perform on one day in one race on a very, very changeable course against, Harry Glenister and Lenny Jenkins and whoever else. It's like, it's a very, it definitely eats at you. It certainly ate at me over the course of the year. And there were times where I was like, really like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this thing.
I can't see any grey hairs yet, so I think you're doing fine.
There are some in my beard, I think. I noticed the other day, but maybe the camera won't pick it up.
One for each boat race.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then I guess, so also happening in what we're on now, like 8-10 days time.
Oh yeah.
For one last go with Cambridge.
Yeah.
How did that come about? It's not the full crew?
No, it's not the full crew. No, so it's actually more Goldie than it is blue.
Okay.
There's 5 Goldie, including the Cox, and then 4 Blues. I've been talking to Rob for the past few years, really. Or Rob's generally been talking to the guys, but me and him have been talking as well about like making more of a go at summer racing. Because there is a kind of sense, and I think particularly over the last decade, that Oxbridge in general are like they do the boat race and that's kind of their thing.
Yeah.
But really, there's no reason why we shouldn't be a club. Cambridge shouldn't be a club that is doing races all year and is performing at the kind of highest level all year. And so we've done a few Henley campaigns while I've been here, and they've always been a little bit lackluster. It's hard to get back into the swing of things after the boat race. Obviously, you have some guys who just want to be done with the sport and move on. Not because of the boat race, but because it was like that was always going to be the last thing, do the boat race and then peacefully retire.
Yeah.
Then you have other guys who need time off, and you do need time off because there's a lot of big climax.
It's all supposed to be doing a degree as well.
And you got to do a degree.
We haven't even mentioned that.
Yeah, you got to do a degree. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe for the undergrads. I don't know about me.
You got some films to watch.
Yeah, I got some films to watch. Right about maybe, but yeah. So it's always difficult. But we wanted to make more of a go at it. So we basically said quite early in the season, like, these are the expectations if you want to do Henley.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of guys always want to do Henley. It's just we haven't before had such a clear structure in place for like what the return to rowing looks like and where you have to be when, and kind of what you're expected to do, like 2 weeks after the race. So it basically meant that no one booked any holidays, and we had a big group show up to start training for Henley again. Some guys did want to stop, which is totally fair. So we basically had a few guys from the Blue Boat, most of the Blue Boat, and then most of Goldie. We decided to do an 8, looking at the Temple.
Mm-hmm.
So doing half Blue Boat, half Goldie, and basically taking out 2 of the Blue Boat guys so that 8 could be eligible for the Temple.
Yeah.
Because they had under 23 medals. Because we thought that would be that would be our best maybe shot at a successful campaign. Sure. And then we could do a visitors 4 with those 2 ineligible guys, bringing in 2 other guys not from Cambridge. We've got Bastian Secker, who strokes the Danish senior 4, so he's really good.
Cool.
And then Sam Sullivan, who strokes the Penn varsity. So they've joined the visitors boys. They've also got a PA 4, and that's guys from the third 8 that did Head of the River. And they're doing really well. They won academic 4s at Met. They were second overall behind UL. So they are really performing very well. And it's been good to see them doing so well. But yeah, so obviously our 8 had an eye towards the Temple. We have now been bumped up to the ladies, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I guess it's kind of flattering that they view us as...
Well, I heard about it, and my first reaction was of course, Cambridge is way better than Temple. So, why should they be racing them? But then, it makes sense now that you're saying it's half and half.
Yeah. And I mean, so we won Met, which I think may have been part of the reason why we got bumped up. And we've definitely been, I mean, it's a really fast boat. So I think we are absolutely like, the goal is the same, to win Henley, and we're going to try and do it in the ladies as much as we've been trying to do it in the Temple. So it's going to be a great challenge, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
By the time this episode comes out, it will be all over, and we're going to know the results. So fingers crossed, you guys get it, or you at least get a very, very good shot at it, because like you never know what's going to happen during that gladiatorial style of racing. But I'm very pleased to see that you've made a move and a push towards like more Olympic distance sort of racing, because I've always said, like, if the margin in the boat race is about 3 lengths over that distance, imagine it's a 2K race. That'll be such a nail biter. And like year on year, like, I wish there was like a parallel, like a day where you can also just like not only run the long distance race, but also like match you guys side by side on like Dorney or like maybe a better lake or something like that.
Yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool. It would be intense.
Sure. Definitely.
We do like, so we have a trip to Croatia every year, which is an 800 meter side by side thing with us in Oxford, and then some Eastern European universities. You might know Jagiellonian? They race in Poland.
I think so, yeah. That sounds like they'll be from a place called Kraków, which is like the old capital of Poland. It will be Uniwersytet Jagielloński, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. That sounds like, that's right.
Who won? Well, we won.
Yeah.
Obviously. Oxford actually came fourth this year.
Too much drinking.
Yeah, I think maybe. But Oxford beat us last year, so it's kind of fair. But we do, we have fun things like that.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I mean, speaking to Old Blues, they used to do tons of fun post-boat race Oxford-Cambridge matchups all over the world. And
there was like the road down the Zambezi.
Yeah. Zambezi, and they raced on the Seine back in the 70s or something in Paris. And, I don't know.
That's cool. I hope that sort of thing makes a return. If there was a message that you'd leave to future Cambridge presidents or people interested in rowing for Cambridge, how would you sell it?
How would I sell it? Well, God, I don't know.
If you want to win,
no, not at all. I'd just say like it is the most unbelievable experience. Doing a boat race season is just the most unbelievable experience that you can have in the sport. Just like the nature of the event, the history behind it, the rivalry, the kind of amateurness of it, despite it being so professional, that kind of balance as well. And just like, you'll never find anything that feels, or at least I haven't found anything that feels quite so meaningful. So certainly like this year, it's been really emotional quite often, just because I have felt the weight of the whole thing, of the boat race and of CUBC and everything that's kind of caught up in that. And there's such an amazing kind of network of people that have been involved over the years that's still so deeply connected to it. So it really just feels like such a cool thing to be a part of. And I would really, if I could give any piece of advice, it'd just be to like throw yourself into it. If you're coming to Cambridge, if you want to come and do the boat race, just like absolutely do it and get as much out of it as you physically can, like, because it'll give back to you in so many ways, and it's just such a rewarding, win or lose, it's a massively rewarding experience. And I've loved every year that I've been a part of it, and it's cool.
That was something good answer to do.
Join the gang, definitely. Yeah. Nah, man, it's been awesome. Let's do some quick fire round questions. I've got a couple of extra ones prepared for you specifically. But let's start how we normally do, which is, out of all the rowing venues that you've trained at, raced at, or visited, what are some of your favorites?
Lake Carnegie, which is where Princeton trains. So cool. Like, beautiful lake. Had it all to ourselves. It was purpose built for Princeton. Cool. It's a big 4-mile course, but it has a 2K buoyed course on it. And as we said before, like, it's very fast. So it's fun to race on. I love that. Love that place so much. And the Tideway, I can't like not say the Tideway. Like, that's where I learned to row. It's where all of my best kind of rowing experiences, I guess, from the past few years have come from.
It's the battlefield, isn't it?
It is. It's the battlefield. You know, it's an amazing course to run. Really, the Tideway. It's like you just don't get that anywhere else. Really, just that kind of the history of it is fantastic. And then where else? I don't know. I haven't read in that many cool places, to be honest.
What about the training camp place that you go to from Cambridge?
Well, Aviz. We went to Aviz this year. That was awesome.
This is nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. That's where the GB team go quite often. The Danish team go a lot. Yeah, I mean, what a place. And the setup with the hotel there.
Yeah.
Just like
go down the canyon way.
Yeah. God, man. The canyon is unbelievable. It's just like massive canyon walls basically sheltering this winding river, and it's just absolute glass flat water, beautiful weather, and then the hotel sort of center has a really, really great restaurant,
Unreal food.
so the food is like I mean, that's a big part of it, right? You know, on training camp you're having to eat a lot, and we were just having, I guess we had second breakfast as well, so 4 really, really good meals a day, and that was like a big part of what made that camp so good, I think.
Nice.
But yeah.
It sounds pretty magical. I mean, I've not been to Aviz yet, but I'm definitely going to visit it at some point. Or maybe we can take the pot hunting pair out there once we get it.
I had to steer that canyon a few times with Ollie Cook, and it's a bit more tricky when you're steering a pair, yeah.
Fair enough. If you were to repeat one race or one event again when you're 60 or 70, what would it be and why? And
then why is it the boat?
To be honest, I'm not sure if it is the boat race.
Awesome.
Good.
The boat race,
No
so
thanks.
hard, and it's like so stressful. I think so. When we won the PE in 2015, like that really stands out to me just as an amazing single race. Because we were underdogs then. Westminster were the favourites.
Yeah.
And,
With Sam Mayer?
with Sam Mayer.
Yeah. Massive quads.
Yeah. Big quads. And we've been rowing against that same group of Westminster kids since we were J14s. We'd always lost to them. Always lost to them. Like Nat School's Head, always behind the Wallingford Regatta, whatever. And then we showed up Henley final. We knew we'd gone a lot faster since Nat Schools. We got silver at Nat Schools. They were gold. And Henley final. We were just like, this is the time. This is when we do it. And literally, we leapt out to like, I don't know, 3/4 of the length at the end of the island, and we just kind of got a bit of clear water, and we just sat there, and it just felt like a dream. It was amazing.
Yeah, like the movie script.
Yeah, genuinely so surreal, and it didn't even feel hard. When we got to the end of it, I was like, that was easy. And then Arthur in front of me was like doubled over. Maybe it was just me not trying that hard. But yeah, if there was that race, it was amazing.
That's actually, I can definitely see why I'd want to relive that one.
Yeah.
For sure. I ask, if you could travel back in time to the age you were when you first fell in love with rowing, what advice would you give that kid?
Just that this sport is going to become like the biggest thing in your life, and it's going to, in many ways, define the next almost 15 years of your life. So like, you don't like savor it, love it. It goes really fast as well. Like I can somehow remember quite vividly the very earliest points of my rowing career. It feels like there's 14 years I guess have gone by, but it feels like no time at all somehow.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And like there's just so many amazing moments and experiences that have come out of that, and it's just like, savor it as much as you can. Try and enjoy it even through the hard times. There are plenty of hard times, but
Good advice.
yeah. Good luck.
Love it. So here's the question that's specifically tailored towards you. I've asked Ella the same thing when we spoke with her. Is there ever a possibility that we might see you on the dark blue side?
No. Absolutely not. And a big part of that is that if I did that, I would be completely ostracized
Yeah.
by the Cambridge community, and I would hate that. That would be terrible,
Yeah.
because you can't, no way.
So Will War, no return for him.
I haven't seen Will War in the flesh ever.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess it's probably wouldn't be as bad as that, but it would definitely be. I think certainly my relationship with a lot of the guys that I've rowed with over the past few years, and Rob as well, and the coaches, it would be different.
Yeah,
you don't row for the enemy.
Cool. Yeah, that's the answer that I expected you to give, which is good past the test.
Is that the answer that Ella gave?
She said that she would possibly consider it only if no one from her era at Oxford was still present in that place, either the coaches, the staff, or the athletes and everything. If it was a completely different set of people, maybe then she'd consider it.
I think she might also be looking for funding for a master's, so maybe that was like, someone's going to give you the money and no one else is there. I might be reading into that, but yeah,
that's fair.
Who are some of your rowing idols, other people that you've looked up to during your career?
There are a few. I think so. When I was a junior, definitely Arthur Doyle in the year above me. He was like everyone's idol, really. All of St Paul's looked up to him. He was just such a fantastic athlete, and he was really leading the squad from basically his J16 year. I think he was like the main man at St Paul's. And then when I was at Princeton in my freshman year, the captain was a guy called Nick Mead, he's now in the American 4 at the Olympics. It's going to the Olympics.
Cool.
And he was like the most chill, like down to earth, lovely, welcoming guy who also happened to be like 540 on the erg, absolute beast, like at like what 20, 21 years old, crazy speed, just unbelievable. And that was when we had Tom George as well at that time. So we had both of them just absolutely lighting it up, and it was amazing to watch. But yeah, Nick was the captain, and I just was like so in awe of him as a freshman. Yeah, just absolute idol for me, for sure. Then Tom and Ollie, of course, when I was at Cambridge, and well, all through my rowing career, but particularly like seeing them at Cambridge, just the way they approach, being athletes and kind of living that athlete life was really, really inspiring. And I guess like just the way that they kind of brought other guys into the fold. And like at Cambridge particularly, it's not like an American team where you have, 50 guys, all of whom have tons of experience. Cambridge, basically you have 2/8 of quite good experience, and then below that is a lot of guys who learn to row at Cambridge, who come up through the college system. So they're quite new to the sport. So you have quite a few quite strong guys, but not a ton of rowing experience. And I think it must have been interesting for Tom and Ollie to kind of come out of Caversham and then be rowing in boats with guys who basically picked up an oar for the first time the year before.
Yeah.
But they were just so accommodating and so willing to in a really kind of nice and helpful and practical way sort of share their experiences and bring everyone up with them. So yeah, definitely them. And who else? My vice president this year, Luca Ferraro.
The uncalled strokeman.
Yes. Yeah. I just think, I don't know, I like, he is kind of like me in that he's not like the most natural athlete. Like, I've never felt like I'm sort of super on top of my game all the time. And, in terms of like the lifestyle pieces of being an athlete, and I know that he is like me in that. He's quite a few years younger than me, but we've kind of come up through Cambridge together. He started at the same time as I did, but he was starting as a fresher. But like what he's been able to achieve, basically going from the spare pair in 2021 to being in the Blue Boat in 2022 and going to the U23 Worlds in a pair, and then winning a gold at U23s the following year, like just such a crazy progression.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and he's really like, I don't know, he's just like, I don't know what the expression, it was like you say someone's got that dog in him, Luca's just got that dog in him. He just like has that ability to just keep turning up, even if he's not like the most well-tuned, sort of super hyper-disciplined athlete. So I really, in a way, I'm kind of, I've been inspired by him all through my time. It's been great to row with him.
I love that. It's always great to hear that the people around you can also be your inspiration, and you don't have to like look at the people in the books or on the TV, etc., etc. So you can find inspiration wherever you're looking, which is brilliant.
It's a common theme with a lot of people. It's something I wouldn't have thought, but yeah, loads of people will like talk about people they've rode with. And I guess like when we kind of asked me the question, the same thing came up. But I think it's like we can miss what's in front of us, so we're busy sort of looking at. I want to be like that guy. Like, hey, you know, there's things around us every day, and there's people around us doing slightly better, slightly worse that we can learn from. Definitely.
Final question: what's your favorite session, either on the water or on the ergo, that you're gonna miss?
Well,
24k EC2.
yeah, definitely not that. Definitely not that. I like. We've been doing a lot of like step rate 250s. We've been going like 26 to 46.
And that's been pretty fun. That's when you know it's racing season.
Yeah, exactly.
250s come out.
Yeah, honestly, like that's just been brilliant. And we've been hitting speed. Like this Henley project I'm doing right now, I don't want to jinx anything, but I've never gone as fast in an 8 as I've been going in this template. Because I feel like I've never had such a dialed like racing specific, like 2K sort of season, really. It's been such a clear shift from the boat race prep to this kind of Henley project. We've had a really big change of how we've been doing things. And it's got us to a place where we're really shifting. So it's been really fun.
Cool, man. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to watch you race, and hopefully we can like drop a little bit of juice on that on the commentary. So we'll see. But yeah, as for today, man, like thanks so much for coming on. It's taken us a while to set this up, and I appreciate you coming into the studio. It's like Tom said, second guest in the studio, the third guest actually in the studio. Yeah. So far we had a guest earlier today as well. Really appreciate your honesty, like your thoughts, reflections, etc. If you're interested in like filming, obviously that's your degree, but like check out some of the drones that were used for the boys in the boat, because they were awesome. Like the amount of gear that we're carrying, etc. Like that was quite cool. But yeah, like hearing the journey that you've gone through at St. Paul's, Princeton, and Cambridge, I'm sure is going to serve as an inspiration to loads of the listeners. So wish you all the best for the Henley campaign, and at some point I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, guys. It's been really brilliant. Being on it.
Oh yeah, appreciate it again. Yeah, say the same thing as Pete. Really, it's awesome. Like good luck for Henley, and yeah, you speak very very eloquently about your journey. So I think there's a lot to be learned from people listening.
Appreciate it.
Cool. That concludes everything for this episode. So on that note, easy there.
Cue the music.